So today I'm going to be sharing my 2022 reading statistics. I'm going to be talking about my 2022 reading year overview. I'm going to be talking about my statistics and also every single book that I finished. I personally love watching these type of videos. I love watching reading statistics videos, and something I love about making them is that I can go back and see my previous reading years and see how much my reading taste is evolving and the way I read. Overall, I had a pretty amazing reading year. I feel like this year I really focused on the books that I knew I was going to like. I DNF'd out of books that I wasn't really enjoying or that I knew weren't really going to be for me, and I was just more conscious with the books that I was picking up, and I really prioritized quality over quantity, and I think this just made an amazing reading year for me. So yeah, this is my 2022 reading year overview. I hope you guys like the video. Starting off with an overview of my reading year, I read 73 books and I also read 29,485 pages. I'm happy with those numbers, but what I'm really happy about is my average rating. My average rating was 4.15. Reading less books and focusing more on books that I knew I was going to like and not experimenting as much as I did last year, I think that really paid off. So as you can see, I had quite a lot of 4 stars and the same amount of 5 stars and 3 stars, and then I only had 2 stars and 1 star book, and that 1 star book was a book that I read for the Goodreads Choice Awards, not a book that I would have picked up myself. And here I have the breakdown of my ratings. I had the same amount of 5 stars and 4 stars. So this is my reading year overview, the amount of books, pages, and they rated per month. I don't really know what to tell you about the fluctuation in this chart. I sometimes read more and I sometimes read less. The only thing I can tell you is that in October I didn't read a lot because all the books I was reading were terrible. So as you can see, October was my lowest rated month because I read the All Souls trilogy. The first book was okay, the last 2 books not so much. October and December I guess were the lowest rated ones, but overall, I'm happy with this. Then my average book length is 404 pages. Honestly, I don't really pay that much attention when I pick up a book if it's long or short. The only thing that I pay attention to is if it has long or short chapters, because I prefer short chapters. So for the pages read in October, I didn't read that many books, but the books were pretty long, as you can see. Oh yeah, as you can see, in October I didn't read that many books, but I read a lot of pages. I didn't realize that actually. Looking at this is actually really fun because I'm seeing that, for example, also in February I read more pages than the average. September was actually a really good reading month for me. I think it's one of my favorite reading months, as well as the beginning of the year. The most common is between 350 pages and 400 pages, and then for some reason there's quite a lot of books between 500 and 550 pages. Then I read 50 fiction books and 23 non-fiction. So now looking into the fiction genres that I read, this is not really accurate because this year I reread the 4 last books in the Harry Potter series, and I also reread the Shadow and Bone trilogy. So my most read genre would be mystery and thrillers, but I do count rereads in my statistics, so that's why fantasy is the highest. I didn't read a lot of romance and horror, and the ones I read are pretty low rated. And I only read one sci-fi book, that's why it's so highly rated, because I really enjoyed that book. But overall, the books I read the highest are my classics, as well as literary fiction, historical fiction, and mythology. Mystery and thrillers is always bittersweet because you never know what you're going to get with a mystery and thriller. And then for non-fiction, I read a lot of biographies and memoirs. Overall, all of them are pretty high rated. The lowest rated ones are 4 stars. And then here I have fiction and non-fiction combined. As you can see, comparing fiction with non-fiction, fiction is more of a roller coaster and non-fiction is more linear. Then for series and standalones, I read more standalones than series because this year I haven't really read that many series. I used to read a lot of series because I used to read a lot of fantasy and dystopian books, but this year I hadn't really read that many. Then for the year published, this is also very different from last year because last year I had a very large range of years. Most of the books were published between 2011 and 2019. Then the one that says unknown is for the Arabian Nights, the 1001 Nights. That book is a collection of different folklore and mythologies, so it has never been published. It just has been collected over the years and then it has been translated by different people. And then another reading goal that I had for this year was to read more new releases, and I think I did accomplish that, because as you can see, 2022 is pretty high up there, so I think that's a goal that I got accomplished. Then for my audience, this is the one that I feel like it's going to be the most different from last year. I read 57 adult books and then 16 young adult. And then for the young adult, most of them are the Harry Potter books and the Shadow and Bone books, because I read a lot of books in the Grishaverse universe. So for author's gender, honestly, whenever I pick up a book, I don't tend to focus on the author's gender. Like, I don't tend to focus that much on that. So then for the language reading, most of them have been read in English, and I only read one Catalan book and then 15 Spanish books. Last year I hadn't read any Catalan books, so I guess that's an improvement. I've never really prioritized reading Spanish books, but sometimes when I speak Spanish or even Catalan, I feel like I'm lacking in some of the more sophisticated richer vocabulary, so I do want to prioritize reading in my own mother tongues. And then from translation, I read 7 books that were translated from English to Spanish, and then the other ones are Korean, Italian, Swedish, French and Arab. Then for the author's nationality, this is very American, and also the United Kingdom, as you can see, is also more colored than the other ones. And then the other one is Spain, but that makes sense since, you know, I'm Spanish. And then for the countries read from, I only read from 18 countries, which is not a lot. Okay, starting off with biographies. I read some really good biographies. Like, for example, Romantic Outlaws is one of my all-time favorite books. It's one of my all-time favorite biographies. I adore Romantic Outlaws so much. If you've been watching my videos for a while, you're probably very tired of me talking about this book. I'm Glad My Mom Died, also an amazing biography that I think pretty much every single person on the internet has read or at least heard of this book. Then Monster, She Wrote is a biography, but it's also a history book. It's about the women who pioneered in the horror and speculative fiction genre. I really enjoyed this book. I discovered so many new authors, female authors, and books that I've never heard from before. And also something that I really enjoyed about this book is that they talked about the book and the author, and also where they got the influence, like where they got the inspiration, and also who they inspired after writing the book. So I really think it's really cool to see all the connections in literature. Then for classics, I have some really good ones here. Dracula by Bram Stoker, he's one of my highlights of this year for sure. Little Women was amazing. It's one of my new comfort books and a book that I'm going to read for sure. The Arabian Nights or 1001 Nights, I think it's a good book for people that love classics. Like, I feel like it's a staple book for people that like classics. It took me a while to read the book because the themes and how the story was presented to us, but apart from that, I think it's a very good classic. Then for modern classics, I read Hangman by the one and only Shirley Jackson. If you like horror books, speculative fiction horror books, I think you will really like this book. It was amazing. Then I read The Anthropocene Reviewed by John Green. I used to read John Green when he was publishing The Fault in Our Stars, Paper Towns, and all of those books, because they came out when I was the perfect, you know, target for this book. So reading this book as an adult, it felt really wholesome, and I think it's a really good book of essays, and I would recommend it. Then for historical, my dog is snoring in the background, so you have some background ASMR. Then for historical fiction, I read a lot of good ones, like every single one of them I would recommend. My favorites obviously are The Time Between by Maria Dueñas and Violeta. Then for history, there's also some gems here. The Radium Girls and Come Fly the Wall, both of these books focus a lot on women and women in history, and I think they were really good books. And then The Witches, Salem 1692, I had a lot of fun reading that book. Not fun because the book was funny, like the subject of the book was obviously very tragic, but I learned a lot. Then for horror, I'm Thinking of Ending Things was actually a pretty insane book. I had a good time reading the book. The ending was very confusing. The Silent Companions, I did not like it. I would not recommend it. And Gallant by V. Schwab, I think it's a great book. I had fun reading it. Then for literary fiction, I really enjoyed every single one of these books, and I would really recommend every single one of these books. Butter Honey Big Bread was recommended to me by Rita, my lovely friend Rita. So for mystery and thrillers, we have a very weird mix. Rock, Paper, Scissors and Daisy Darker by Alice Finney were actually pretty fun to read. I want to keep reading Alice Finney's releases because I like her writing style. I love the atmosphere she creates. The endings are not my favorite, like I don't love her endings. I've only read 2 books by her, but the atmosphere she creates is really good, so I do like her books. And then El Caso Las Cassandras by Joel Dicker. I adore every single book Joel Dicker writes. And then with Riley Sager, I don't think I'm going to keep reading his books, not because I hate them, but just because I always feel very meh about them. I always forget his books, and I don't tend to forget books, and I don't like forgetting books. Then for mythology is very fucking heartbreaking and very fucking tragic. I may, like next year, I may put it on pause. Maybe not, but as of right now, these 3 mythology books were heartbreaking, especially Elena Esparta. That book was completely heartbreaking. I did like these 3 books, but at the same time they were so sad that it feels weird saying that I like these 3 sad books. Then for science fiction, I only read 1 book. I'm very glad I read it because it's a really good science fiction. Then for true crime, I liked all these books, but after reading Mindhunter, which was the last book I read in this list, after reading Mindhunter, I really see true crime in a very different light right now, because I feel like sometimes people tend to glamorize true crime, and also with all the, not documentaries, like with all the series that we have been getting about Jeffrey Dahmer and Ted Bundy and all these serial killers, I feel like it's very disrespectful. For example, Criminal Minds is a fictional TV series. It's not something that is based on true life events. And with Mindhunter, this book was written by a criminologist, so this is basically his life. What I'm trying to say is that I just love true crime, but I'm not prioritizing true crime anymore because I just get this icky feeling. I'm going to keep reading it because some of these books are really good. And for example, Bad Blood is not about serial killers, it's just about stupid people trying to make money and become a billionaire. I'm just going to be more specific about the books I choose to read in this genre. And then for witchcraft, I read Welsh Witchcraft. I loved this book so much. I really enjoyed it, and I would recommend it to people that are getting into witchcraft and want to learn about different types of witchcraft. Then I also read the last 4 books in the Harry Potter series. I like reading these books once in a while because it's my comfort series. I also reread the Sharon Bone trilogy, and I read for the second time Demon in the Wood. But the first time that I read it, it was just a novella, and then this year I read the graphic novel that came out, and then I also read the Lives of Saints. And I wish Liv Bardugo wrote more mythology and folklore because she's amazing at that. I loved every single book that I read of the Grishaverse this year. Then I also read the All Souls trilogy. I did not like it. I liked A Discovery of Witches. I didn't like the rest of the series. Then I read La Ciudad Blanca. It's a Spanish mystery thriller series. Personally, I would also not recommend it. Then I read the first 2 books in the Bertrand series. Really good series. It's very, very sad. Just keep that in mind, and also look up the trigger warnings. Then I read The Infinite Devices. I read them at the beginning of the year, I believe. I'm a little sad that I didn't read this sooner because I just think that I would have adored these books as a teenager. Now, I'm not saying that adults cannot enjoy these books, it's just that my reading taste right now is not this type of books. Then for graphic novel, I read Homage to Catalonia by George Orwell. I read the Catalan graphic novel, which was Homenatge a Catalunya. I still want to read the novel, but for now I read the graphic novel of it. Then for poetry, I read On Sans Halloween by Dakota Warren. Not gonna lie, I'm not the biggest fan of contemporary poetry. I don't know what it is about it. I feel like every single contemporary poetry book feels the same to me. I used to read a lot of it back in 2016, 2017, and then I stopped because, like I said, everything felt the same to me. But it was nice to read another one. And for romance, I have these 2 books. Honestly, I kind of refuse to classify It Ends With Us as a romance book because it's not. I don't know, it's not a romance book. I would not recommend this book. Then Book Lovers, I read it because they won the romance category in the Goodreads Choice Awards. It was fun. I don't tend to read romance books, so I cannot really compare it to anything else. So yes, this was my 2022 reading year of view of my statistics. Well, pretty much all of my statistics and every single book that I finished. My reading taste and the way I think about books are always evolving and always changing, but as of right now, this is my thoughts and opinions on the books I read. I hope you guys liked this video. I love making these statistics. It does take me a while, but I love making them. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you very, very soon. Bye.